Welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, where we highlight the latest trends in law office and law practice management to help you run your law firm. Brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute. You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. This is Christine Bilbrey. I'm a Senior Practice Management Advisor at PRI and the host of the Florida Bar Podcast. Today, we are recording down at our annual convention in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for joining us today. So, I'm excited to welcome two guests to the show. I've just gotten out of a special committee meeting on mental health and wellness of Florida lawyers, and we had two guests at the committee meeting, and they've graciously agreed to do a podcast because I think this is important information to get to our members. So I want to welcome Molly Paris and Judy Rushlow, and they are from Florida Lawyers Assistance, Inc., and we always call that FLA, Inc. around the bar, but you guys told me that you call yourselves something different.
Yes, FLA.
FLA. Okay. So, Judy.
But we answer to almost anything.
Great. Judy, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at FLA.
Well, I'm the executive director. I was formerly the assistant director for 22 years. So I've just been in this position for about 6 months. We assist attorneys who have substance abuse or mental health problems that usually are bordering on or truly in a state of impairment. We're a not-for-profit corporation. We've been around for over 30 years, and we're trying to get more and more involved in the Florida Bar's initiative on wellness, which is very, very important to us. We take calls from lawyers. We have a hotline. We try to direct them to the kind of treatment and help that they need. We monitor them. We kind of try to be all things to all people, but it's not an easy job, but it's very gratifying.
And Molly, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you're newer to Florida Lawyers Assistance.
I am. First of all, thank you so much for having us. This is a really important message to get out to Florida lawyers. And I am new to Florida Lawyers Assistance as far as working there. I started in September of 2017, but I actually, 10 years ago, was a FLA client. I was struggling with my drinking, and I was an Illinois attorney, and I moved to Florida, and I went to treatment, and I got sober, and my counselor there recommended that I call FLA and ask for help and be around other attorneys that were in recovery. And so that's what I did. So I was a client, and then I was a volunteer for FLA for quite a few years. So while I'm new to being employed, I'm not new to the organization at all. So it was something very close to my heart. I was initially hired to be the outreach coordinator. One of the sort of myths that we're trying to dispel is that we are not just, for drunk lawyers. I mean, we do, fortunately help with that too. But to get the word out there that we address mental health issues and that people can come to us voluntarily. So I was hired as the outreach coordinator. And then once Judy moved up to executive director, I took her position. However, I am still doing the outreach work. And so I'm have sort of a dual role now. And what I do, I work with the clients individually like Judy does, and then I also travel around to various, bar associations, law schools, public defenders' offices, law firms. And so I've been there about 7 months. I actually blew out the transmission on my Jeep, even though it's only a 2016 Jeep. But, there's a lot of work to be done. There are 13 law schools in Florida. I've been to a little more than almost all of them. And, we're just really, really trying to get the word out that we're here and that we're available. So it's been great. It's been a great couple of months so far at FLA.
Well, and I brought you both up here for a very specific reason. I am the bar staff person for what was the Special Committee on Mental Health and Wellness. So we have spent the past year trying to get the word out. We're working on destigmatizing the issue, coming up with new resources to help our attorneys, because we know from the Hazelden study that this is a group of people that are struggling with depression, a lot of stress, a lot of mental illness. And so we feel that the Florida Bar should, step in and because this is very specific to our profession. And so you joined us today, and there's a lot of myths about Florida Lawyers Assistants, because when we are telling people to get help, a lot of people will not contact you because they believe that we, the bar, will know about that it will result in discipline or, a grievance, that it's going to harm their career. And so I always thought that if they reached out to you, because, there is an affiliation with us, that they would have to tell you who they were or their bar number. And so can you talk a little bit about that? If someone is really struggling and they call your number, do they have to identify themselves as, who they are, or just that they are a bar member?
Absolutely no need for them to even identify themselves. Now, and it makes it a little difficult for us to document, our calls, but, we're perfectly happy with entering somebody as an anonymous call from a lawyer struggling with depression or whatever. Confidentiality is probably our most important motto or mantra. And we've been talking about this for a very long time, but I think it's just very hard for lawyers to believe. And perhaps that's because we do a lot of work with the Florida Bar. The Florida Bar refers lawyers to us who have found themselves in the disciplinary system, and we work with them. We have them evaluated. We make recommendations for treatment, not for discipline. But, perhaps that connection gives them pause before they pick up and call. And that way, if we can dispel that belief that we're going to report them or we need to even identify them, we're much more interested in trying to find out how we can help them or how we can point them in the right direction so they can help themselves.
So if someone calls your number, Molly, and they are struggling, and I think typically it may be a whole grouping of issues. So maybe, they're self-medicating because they're depressed or their practice isn't going well, and they reach out to you. They don't know what kind of help they need. What is your response? How are you going to help them?
Well, we do help with a wide range of issues. And so as Judy said, if someone comes to us voluntarily, then I first start out by reminding them, this is confidential. There's a statute that protects you, and we're exempt from the reporting rule. Judy and I are exempt from the reporting rule. And, it depending upon why they call, I'll give you a couple of examples, obviously keeping anonymity. I've had, just this past week, I had an attorney call and he said, I can't stop drinking. I don't know what to do. I've never had issues with the bar. I've never had issues with the legal system, but I'm scared for my life. And, we had him actually come in. We spoke to him. Luckily, he was local, and we hooked him up with some other, an attorney support group. He was comfortable doing that. He also was interested in seeing a therapist. So we gave him some referrals, and I check in with him every day, and say 7 days sober, good job. 10 days sober, good job. 30 days sober, good job. And,
Wow.
It takes us just a few minutes. And again, that's the kind of call that's really music to our ears, because we want people to come to us before they enter the disciplinary system, before they enter the legal system, or worse, before they lose their lives. Now, if someone, that happens to be my particular experience. I'm a lawyer, not a clinician. So if someone calls and they say, I'm having severe anxiety. I'm going through a divorce. Again, it doesn't even have to be a DSM-5 diagnosis. You can be going through something in life that's not a permanent disability, and I'm having trouble functioning. We have a clinical director on staff, Dr. Scott Weinstein, who's very wonderful to speak to and has a lot of experience working with lawyers. I believe how long has he been with us, Judy?
About 13 years, I think.
Okay. So if it's a call that's more directed to mental health, I would send that person to Scott, and he's 3 doors down. It's not like we have a large office. And he could provide a variety of resources, whether it's one of his groups, an individual therapist. Sometimes people want to know where they should go to treatment. Sometimes people call on behalf of other folks. I'm really worried about my partner. I'm worried about my associate. I'm worried about my opposing counsel. And we reach out to those people. We write them a letter and say, we've heard that, people are concerned, please feel free to call us.
Wow.
And often they don't, and sometimes they do. And again, Judy has the knowledge of many years, so she would have a better idea of how often people will respond to that. But that's the type of help that we can give, and that's the type of help that we want to give more of. People that are not yet in the quote unquote system.
Right. And I think that's a distinction that a lot of our members don't realize, that it's actually a member benefit. So you don't have to have anything to do with discipline. You don't have to be referred over to FLMIC. This is not our Florida Lawyers Mutual Assistance. We have so many acronyms. And so we, as a committee, so now we have a new page on the Florida Bar website. So I want to tell everyone how to find that. If you don't remember the number after we talk about it later, if you go to floridabar.org and you hover over members, you will see that one of the choices is health and wellness. And if you click on that, we have made your number giant in the middle of the page, because we know that if someone's struggling, they don't want to scroll and look and read through articles. We just want them to get help right away. And I was encouraged to find out today that has actually increased the calls that you've been getting, on your line. So tell us if you've seen a change in the incoming calls that way, Judy.
It has. Just recently, in the last couple of months, we've been trying to do a better job of documenting and tracking the cases that are not bar referrals. Our database is kind of set up to help us with the monitoring function and the evaluation. So it doesn't really allow us to track those calls, but we've started doing it. And in the last couple of months, we've been getting about 30 of those calls a month, or about one a day. One day I had 3 such calls. It's starting to make a real difference. And we also have a new website, which is fla-lap.org, or you can Google Florida Lawyers Assistance. And I think sometimes lawyers want to find out what is it that I'm calling. So we're pretty proud of the new website that we have, and there's a lot of information on there. Who we are, what we do. There's a lot of links and referrals to other resources. But there's also, like on a lot of websites, there's a box there, to contact us. And we get emails, and we're getting a surprising number of contacts that way. And, maybe that feels even a little more anonymous, but we respond to those just like we do to everything else.
That's great. Maybe that's less scary, because this is a big step for people.
I think it must be.
So tell us your website address again.
Okay, it's www.FLA, stands for Florida Lawyers Assistance, -LAP, stands for Lawyer Assistance Program.org.
Okay. So going forward in the committee, so we've tried to, we want people to be more aware of where to get help. And so it was interesting. One of our committee members, Carl Schwaitz, said, I know that if I have an ethics question, I just call up. And it's funny because I give people that number so much that I know that the ethics committee is 800-235-8619. And Carl is like, and you'll talk to Elizabeth, like people at the bar know that number. They know who they're going to get. So I want you to become just like that. Because
so do
this should be just like the ethics hotline. It should be that matter of fact. So I want you to tell us your 800 number, Molly.
It's 800-282-8981.
Okay, say it again.
1-800-282-8981.
Okay, excellent.
1-800-282-8981.
And I'm serious, like that is going to be, I think that when it just becomes that perfunctory, like, oh, you have a question about that rule, call Elizabeth at Ethics. Oh, you're having, you've had a horrible week and it's starting to snowball for you. Let's call it Molly or Judy. So that's the goal. So I really, really appreciate you coming in today. If they want to find you, can you email, or do you have other ways that if our listeners want to contact you, they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. My email is Molly, MOLLY, at FLA-LAP.org. And Judy and I both make our cell phones available to people too, for any. It doesn't have to be just between 9 and 5. If people need help, they can call us anytime. So my cell phone number is 305-788-9359. And again, we encourage people to call us whenever they need us.
Wow. And so I really want to encourage them to call you. You are lovely individuals. You're not scary at all. And I love that you've been there So I think that's important. Like, you have a real credibility on this issue. So thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. This has been another edition of the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. Thank you to our guest. If you liked what you heard today, please find and rate us in iTunes. I'm Christine Bilbrey. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute and produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com, subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find the Florida Bar Practice Resource Institute, and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.